Hi everyone! In this video we're going to look at how to choose the right pocket knife. I'm going to illustrate this video as best I can and present you with the most important information for choosing a good folding knife so that it will be useful and appreciated. Apart from fixed blade kitchen and table knives, the most widely used and marketed types of knife are undoubtedly folding knives. The main reason for this is their compactness and ease of transport, or carrying to be more precise. In most countries, legislation on carrying knives is restrictive. A folding knife is a little less dangerous in size and appearance than fixed blade knives, which require a sheath to carry them. The folding knife is smaller, more discreet, and therefore considered less of a weapon. It is also a beautiful object, sometimes a collector's item, with a generally more refined finish than fixed blade knives. The folding knife is reserved for small tasks, while the fixed-blade outdoor knife is capable of enduring very intensive cutting sessions. These folding models are referred to as pocket knives, as most can be slipped into a trouser pocket. The term EDC for everyday carry is also used to designate these knives. Folding knives thus represent the majority of the market for so-called leisure or utility knives, or even collector's knives. It's also worth noting that almost half of all folding knife production comes from China. In the last 10 years or so, there has been an explosion of Chinese brands. Most of these companies used to produce for Western brands before launching their own. The particularity of these Chinese brands is that they offer knives with a very good quality-price ratio. So inevitably, this explains a good part of their success, especially as these brands don't just offer knives of excellent workmanship. They innovate and offer a rather incredible range in terms of diversity and above all design. This makes the choice very difficult. You may be seduced by certain types of model and then hesitate over the color and materials. Some brands offer the same model in both entry-level and high-end versions, with more expensive components such as alloys and handle materials. Of course, the choice is also often dictated by price. You can set a limit for yourself, which means you can already rule out many models. The range of folding knives on offer is enormous, with several thousand references on some sites. To make the right choice from among these countless models, you'll need to consider a number of very important criteria to determine what's best for your particular purpose. Faced with all these models, you're going to try to find the one that suits you best. Of course, you may fall in love with a particular model, as the aesthetics and style of a knife take precedence over its technical features. Each individual places his or her criteria in a certain hierarchical order. It's perfectly understandable to prefer an attractive knife to a model that's the most efficient and practical, but has an unattractive style. To choose a knife in a rational and methodical way, you'll have to go through a selection of models in successive stages until you determine which one will be the best. Let's take a look at how. First criterion: price. For many of us, price is the first criterion. Some of us have almost unlimited financial means, while others have a passion for spending large sums on a knife. But most of us try to remain reasonable and within our financial means. Not more than $50 for some, $100, $200, $300 or more for others. You may be able to afford a very nice expensive knife, but if you're going to abuse it and not take good care of it, you can limit yourself to a budget knife. This way, you won't have too many regrets if you damage it or even lose it. The lower your price threshold, the more you'll eliminate models deemed too expensive, and there are plenty of expensive folding knives out there. Fortunately, there are also plenty of models under $70, so you'll still be spoilt for choice. Second criterion: dimensions. The size and weight of a pocket knife are important because, as the name suggests, it's designed to be carried in a trouser pocket. A small, lightweight knife can be carried without constraint. If a knife is bulky, you may be reluctant to carry it with you and leave it at home when you need it most. The average weight of a pocket knife is about 3.5 ounces. Personally, I think that the extra weight is less of a penalty than the type of trouser pocket. A tight-fitting pocket, like that of jeans or thick pants, holds the knife firmly in place. On the other hand, an ample, loose pocket, made of a thin, light fabric and often low like that of hiking pants, is not well suited to carrying a knife. Even when secured with the clip, the knife will bang against the thigh as the pocket is subjected to the amplitude of the leg's movement, whereas the tight pocket of thick pants located below the hip is subject to less movement. The knife will not be heckled. Since we're talking about a pocket knife, it makes sense to take into account the pocket in which the knife is placed. That said, these days we carry our smartphones and keys to the car and house with us, so a few extra grams on a knife is not that important. We're already well loaded, and it's better to have sturdy, well-adapted pockets than a slightly lighter knife. Third criterion: lockable blade or not. There are two categories of folding knives: those whose blade can be locked using various types of locking systems, and those whose blade remains, so to speak, mobile. In other words, the blade could fold down unintentionally. Locking the blade is an undeniable safety feature if you use your knife for certain purposes, like sticking your blade into wood, because if you exert pressure on the back of the tip of the blade, it can close on your fingers if it is not locked. However, if your knife is wisely designed to prepare sandwiches, you won't be exposing yourself to this kind of risk. It's worth noting that the forced notch on traditional knives cannot be considered a true blade locking system, but rather a mechanism for holding the blade in the open position. If you decide to opt for a folding knife with a blade locking system, you'll also need to determine whether this system is right for you. There are several types available. The famous ferrule on Opinels, the so-called Viroblock system, is well known. But on more modern knives, you'll find liner lock, frame lock, back lock, Benchmade axis lock, SOG XR lock, SRM outdoor ambi lock, and others. Last but not least, liner lock is the most widespread system. While frame lock is a related but more robust system for locking the knife blade, since it's the very structure of the handle, the frame, that provides the locking. The frame lock is sometimes fitted with a latch to secure it. This ensures that the blade will not close again. It is also important that the release is easily accessible and operable. Over the past 2 years, many knives have also been fitted with a button lock system. Fourth criterion: the opening system. There are 4 main opening systems: the flipper, the thumb stud, the thumb hole, and the nail nick. The latter requires the use of both hands to open the knife, usually gripping the blade with your thumbnail. The flipper, on the other hand, deploys the blade instantly with a simple press of the index finger on the pin, which forms a kind of guard once the knife is open. Most flippers are located on the top, but some are on the front. These are known as front flippers. They are a little less ergonomic, but the shape of the knife is a little more harmonious. The thumb stud system also enables the blade to be opened very quickly with just one hand. The thumb hole also enables one-handed opening. Depending on the model, these systems are more or less flexible and easy to trigger. It may take a little practice to get used to opening the knife in a flash. This depends on the knife's balance and the fluidity, as well as on your dexterity. Knives equipped with a button lock can also be used to deploy the blade with a flick of the wrist. There are also knives that open automatically. Most of these automatic knives are called OTF, which stands for out the front. Since the blade of these types of automatic knives retracts into the handle, they can't really be called folding knives in the strict sense. But they are among the pocket knives whose blade is mobile and becomes inoperative once the knife is closed. Finally, some folding knives combine 2 or 3 types of opening. Front flipper opening is sometimes difficult to master on certain models. The ease with which the blade can be deployed therefore generally depends on the release offered by the pivot. It also takes some practice to get used to certain models, depending on the size of your hands and the knife's ergonomics. Let's digress for a moment before presenting the 5th criterion. Some of the knives shown in this video can be purchased via links in the description window. Using these links helps support the Forza Knife channel, as the manufacturers pay a small commission. Some of these knives have been the subject of a video presentation. You'll also find the link below. To choose a folding knife, you can refer to the manufacturer's technical data sheets, even if we can sometimes deplore the fact that some information is missing. But there are also YouTube channels that give in-depth presentations of certain knives, so you can learn more about them and make a better choice. 5th criterion, steel. The choice of steel is also important. Which steel with which properties? Rust-prone carbon steel or stainless steel? Will it keep its sharpness for a long time, or is it easy to sharpen? The price of a knife also depends on the type of steel used in the blade. So it's up to you to decide which type of steel suits you best. It's worth remembering that all steels contain carbon. The term carbon steel is therefore a pleonasm, but it is used by manufacturers to describe steels that are not stainless because their alloy is chromium-free or does not contain enough chromium to enable the steel to resist oxidation. This clarification deserved to be made. It may seem more flattering to speak of carbon steel than of steel that may be subject to rust. A steel that rusts is still a very good steel. You just have to take better care of it by maintaining the blade from time to time. The subject of steels would require a fairly long video on its own, as there are over 60 steels used in cutlery. The 4 main properties of steels are their resistance to corrosion, their resistance to wear, which is in fact their ability to retain their cutting edge, their ease of sharpening, which is in fact the opposite of their hardness, and finally their toughness, which is their ability to resist impact, chipping, cracking, and breakage. The choice of a steel is a matter of compromise between these different properties. A very hard steel resists wear better, retains its sharpness well, but is more likely to break or be chipped, and is also more difficult to sharpen. The most expensive, top-of-the-range steels are generally high-grade steels that retain their sharpness very well, thanks in particular to the addition of certain elements to the alloy, such as cobalt, vanadium, and tungsten. Softer, less expensive steels are more resistant to breakage and easier to sharpen but lose their cutting edge fairly quickly. 6th criterion, blade shape and grind. The shape of the blade also contributes to the look of the knife, but the shape of the blade and its grind also play a role in cutting efficiency. Remember that a knife is first and foremost a utilitarian object, a tool, before being a collector's item. Blade thickness is also an important criterion. Some folding knives have a blade as thin as 0.08 inches, 2 millimeters, while others are as thick as 0.19 inches, 5 millimeters. A thin blade will enable you to slice certain products more delicately than a very thick one. Blades come in a variety of shapes. The drop point shape is the most classic, the most widespread, and the most versatile. There are also highly eccentric blade shapes, with curves and even edges that vary along the grain. There are blades with serrations. There are truly atypical blades whose effectiveness is questionable. Design sometimes takes precedence over efficiency. It's probably a bias on the part of the designers. Nevertheless, a knife must remain a useful and effective tool, and classic blade shapes have long proved their worth. 7th criterion, handle materials and configuration. The materials that make up the handle and the structure of the knife are also important. The handle may be made of plastic or composite materials, such as micarta or G10. It can also be made of aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber, precious woods, or blends of some of these elements. For example, the frame lock side is made of titanium, with carbon fiber on the opposite side. The handle forms the frame of the knife, concealing the blade while protecting it and us from it when folded up to carry the knife. The thickness of the plates, if fitted, influences the knife's strength, rigidity, and weight. Some are perforated to reduce weight. The knife is thus a few grams lighter. Eighth criterion: sturdiness. To determine whether a knife will be sturdy, we can assess the thickness of the blade, find out about the type of steel, but above all, take into account the structure of the knife and the precision of assembly, and, of course, the quality of the materials. Some handles are, so to speak, one piece, which enhances the rigidity and robustness of the knife's structure. Of course, folding knives cannot be subjected to the same stresses as fixed blade knives. Their pivot-articulated design inevitably makes them more fragile. A folding knife with a reputation for sturdiness is not a survival knife, and you'll need to avoid putting too much strain on it if you want to keep it in good condition for countless years. Another factor to consider is the pivot mechanism. The simplest mechanism is formed by a washer. It's easy to replace and not very sensitive to dust. But for several years now, most knives have had a pivot system with ceramic ball bearings, which offer a smoother opening action, but are more prone to fouling. Of course, you can't be sure that a knife will be as sturdy as you think it will be, but by taking into account the brand's reputation and the model's technical data sheet, you can already get a good idea of the knife's reliability. An excessively low price often means that the knife is made from inferior materials and that there has been less quality control during production, so you shouldn't necessarily expect to acquire a particularly durable product, even if you can find very good, sturdy knives for €40. Ninth criterion: the pocket clip. For some, this is an important criterion. Does the clip fit harmoniously into the shape of the knife, and is it reversible if you're left-handed? Does it allow the knife to be worn discreetly in the pocket? Is it effective in securing the knife? Is it removable if you want to dispense with the clip? The pocket clip secures the knife, so you don't have to dig deep into your pocket to find it. It holds the knife securely in place, preventing it from slipping out of the pocket when running, for example. But as we said earlier, the trouser pocket is also very important to ensure a good fit and comfort when carrying the knife. You can also attach it to the inside of an EDC pouch to keep it securely in place alongside other tools and accessories. Last but not least, pocket clips that rise slightly above the handle keep the knife out of sight. This type of clip is known as a deep carry pocket clip. 10th and final criterion: design. Once you've narrowed your selection down to just 4 or 5 models, it's time to decide which knife appeals to you most in terms of overall shape, handle, blade, materials, and color. Here again, one knife model can come in several variants, with handles in different materials and blades in satin, stone-washed, or black finishes. This can make the final stage of the choice even more complicated. This last criterion is subjective, as the appreciation of the look and feel of a knife depends on individual taste. To conclude, I'd like to present you with a few figures that I feel are important for a better understanding of the range of pocket knives on offer. Choosing a knife is also a question of dimensions. Let's take a look at the most extreme cases among the many folding pocket knives. The heaviest reach 12 ounces, 340 grams. This is the case with the Extrema Ratio RIO Testudo. Cold Steel also offers the 4 Max Scout, weighing in at 10.23 ounces, 290 grams. The Amare Colosso weighs 8.46 ounces, 240 grams, which I can show you because I have it. There are undoubtedly even more extreme models. The smallest knives measure just over 2.75 inches, 7 centimeters. Like the Spyderco Bug Black, whose open length is 2.87 inches, 7.3 centimeters, for just 0.42 ounces, 12 grams, a real featherweight. These knives are primarily designed to be used as key rings and secondarily as knives for opening mail. Another example is the Opinel No. 2 Tradition, which weighs just 0.21 ounces, 6 grams. Among the longest open pocket knives is the CRKT Jumbones, which measures 10.98 inches, 27.9 centimeters for 5.75 ounces, 163 grams. Returning to the subject of blade locking systems, there are more than 30 different types. As I like statistics, I found that on the Knives and Tools website, there were 1427 models on sale with liner lock, 1010 slip joint, 912 frame lock, 456 back lock, and 111 without lock, out of a total of 3,916 knives. Among the 4,333 models sold, 2699 folding knives open with one hand, 1509 require both hands, and 125 models offer assisted opening. There are a dozen opening systems, the most widespread being, out of 4,872 knives, flipper with 1339 models, nail nick, 1299 knives, thumb studs, 968 models, thumb hole, 693 references, front flipper, 207 knives. There remain 366 knives with other opening systems. As for the most commonly used handle materials, out of 4,132 knife models, in descending order, G10, layers of fiberglass fixed in resin, with 1064 models, titanium with 802 models, wood with 408 knives, FRN, glass fiber reinforced nylon, with 354 models, carbon fiber with 336 knives, micarta, a mixture of resin and linen, with 332 references, stainless steel with 287 models, various plastics with 288 knives, and aluminum with 261 knives. It should be noted that certain handles are often mixed. For example, the combination of titanium and carbon fiber, or G10 inserts. Finally, in terms of blade shapes, among 4,129 models, there are 2061 drop point knives, 829 clip point knives, sheep foot knives, 544 models, followed by spear point knives, 296 models, Wharncliffe knives, 215 models, and Tanto knives, 184 models. That's just about all you need to know to choose the right pocket knife. It's always possible to fall in love with a knife, but if you're going to use it on a daily basis, it's best to make an informed choice. Thank you for watching this video. A little blue thumb to support the channel, a share and a subscription will be much appreciated and motivating to continue producing videos. See you soon.